came, I polished up my blade. I saw my name in candlelight where boys and heroes stayed. I dreamed I'd meet a roaring beast with murder in his eyes. I dreamed I'd drive the steel in deep and hear the colonel cry, "There stands a man among us now." The banners would be raised, and every mouth around the fire would learn to speak my name. Oh, I was young, and hunger makes a crown of any little shine. I thought the road to manhood ran through another body's spine. He raised his hands, I raised my blade. I thought a man was born that way. He raised his hands, I saw him pray. But glory had my wrist that day. He would not fall like dreams fall down. He would not die like glory told him to. He raised his hands, I raised my blade, and all the world went blue. At dawn the drums were cracking hard. The smoke crawled on the field. The captain shouted, "Forward, boys," and no one thought to yield. Their line broke first, their colors dipped. Their shouting turned to cries. Some threw their rifles in the mud. Some lifted empty palms. And there he stood before me then, too small inside his coat, with dirt across his frightened mouth and terror in his throat. I had waited for a monster with a saber and a curse, but he looked almost like my brother, only standing on the other earth. He raised his hands, I raised my blade. I thought a man was born that way. He raised his hands, I saw him pray. But glory had my wrist that day. He would not fall like dreams fall down. He would not die like glory told him to. He raised his hands, I raised my blade, and all the world went blue. The first thrust went below the ribs. I felt the cloth give way. His face was not a soldier's face, it was a child's dismay. Then red came black across his lips. He folded at the knees. He tried to speak, but only blood came boiling through his teeth. I wanted him to disappear, to drop like stories do, but he kept breathing in the mud and looking up at me. I whispered like a prayer, "Die, die, die." But God was not there. The blade went in, the blade came out. The drums went dumb, the field went loud. He would not die, he would not leave. He held the earth, he held my sleeve. By dusk the boys had heard of it. They grinned and passed it round. "You got one with the bayonet, you put him in the ground." They slapped my back, they called me brave. They said I'd earn my bread. I sat beside the cook fire with my supper getting cold. The officers had seen enough, or heard enough by dawn. They'd passed me like a sickness, with their polished faces drawn. The major called me from the ranks before the morning bread. The men stood proud around me for the rumor they had fed. He pinned the medal to my coat. His fingers cold and tight, the name so only I could hear the sentence of my life. You killed that boy. Congratulations. He raised his hands, I raised my blade. I thought a man was born that way. He raised his hands, I saw him pray. But glory had my wrist that day. He would not fall like dreams fall down. He would not die like glory told him to. He raised his hands, I raised my blade, and all the world went blue. Years went by and Sunday closed. The war was over in the books, but not beneath my floor. They called me veteran in town. They touched the medal's face. I kept it wrapped in linen, like a bone I could not place. I thought a man was made by steel. I thought a name was won. I wore the medal like a wound until I wore the gun. No cheer came through the bedroom wall. No trumpet answered me. The last shot sounded nothing like victory.